Hey traders, John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast for the 10th of June to the 14th of June 2019. As always, we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index and oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. We're also going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in this coming week and also for the weeks ahead. So let's jump over to the charts and see what the money is this week. As always, we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index. Now, last week in the US dollar index, we declined to the downside, breaking the key low of the 97.03, and that gave us, as you can see, this confirmed top in the US dollar, otherwise known as a double top. And so as a result, going into this week, we do have a bearish bias on the US dollar, and we are looking for further declines to the downside in the US dollar index. So very simply put, in the US dollar, if we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance at 97.72. But any pullback in this area is going to give us the opportunity to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at further declines in the dollar index down towards the key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 96.00. So next what we're going to look at is crude oil. Now, last week we had this big sell-off to the downside and we were looking for a correction before further declines to the downside. We did drop down a little bit, but as you can see, we started the week here and we actually finished the week up here. So we pretty much moved sideways last week. So very simply put, we're still looking for further declines to the downside in oil. We're starting to get this correction take place now. If we can get a pullback, and any deeper pullback is preferable because the deeper we pull back, the better the risk to reward. Preferably, as always, if we can come all the way back to broken support, turning resistance to 57.19, because this would give us the best risk to reward. But any pullback in this area is going to give us a chance to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 49.33. So next what we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now, last week we identified the key area of support at the 1.11190 as an important area in the euro dollar. This was in fact our target a number of times in previous videos, which we took out over here and over here. And we were still trending to the downside last week, and we're still looking further declines, but we did say we would only be looking at those shorts if we could break the 1.11190 like this. Okay, with this kind of price action. And you can see why we said that last week, because of this risk of reversal. We have in fact reversed now in the euro dollar. We are looking further advances to the upside. So very simply put, if we can get a pullback in the euro dollar, any pullback in this area, but as always, if we can come all the way back to retest broken resistance turning support, this will be the preferable place, as we'll get better risk to reward to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1.1389. So next market we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now we start the week above a key area of support at the 1.2610. So very simply put, we are looking for further advances to the upside this week in the pound dollar, especially if we do get that decline to the downside in the dollar index. If we can get a correction back towards the key area of support at the 1.2610, and preferably if we can come all the way back and retest this, and in this case we would end up with a what's known as an inverse head and shoulders pattern as well. This would be a great chance to start in this area to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1.2865. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar Japanese yen. Now last week we pretty much moved sideways in the US dollar Japanese yen. We were looking for a pullback last week for further declines to the downside. We did get this correction, and what we'd like to see is if we can come back and correct a little bit more, that would be fantastic, because this would, again, as I said, give us better risk towards the target. But any pullback in this area, we're using this correction now as an opportunity to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. Preferably if we can come back and retest previous broken support, turning resistance at the 109.09, this would be the best place to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bearish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 107.32. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 106.10. So next market we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now last week was a reversal week to the upside in the Australian US dollar market, and we are now looking further advances to the upside. Our bias is for further advances in the Aussie dollar. Very simply put, going into next week, if we can get a pullback and preferably if we can get a retest of broken resistance turning support at 0.6940, this is going to be the best place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking up towards the first target and next key of resistance to the upside at the 0.7052. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key of resistance and target 2, the 0.7130. So next market we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now we start the week above a key area of broken resistance from the past, looking to turn support at the 0.65580. If we can get a pullback and preferably if we can get a retest of broken resistance turning support at the 0.65580, this is going to be the best place going into next week to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs and treating any pullback in this area as an opportunity to go long in the New Zealand dollar up towards the next key of resistance to the upside of the target set, the 0.6713. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key of resistance to the upside and target 2, the 0.6773. Now, for those of you who like your trend lines, you can see as well that there is a case to be made for an additional confirmation point in this area if you draw a trend line connecting these lows. So this again would be a good place next week to start to look for those bullish formations and patterns in New Zealand dollar. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar Swiss franc. Now last week we did have further declines to the downside, taking out both the targets set from last week at the 0.9975 and the 0.9927. Very simply put, we are looking further declines this week in the US dollar Swiss franc. If we can get a pullback, because we're coming up now towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set. So if we can get a pullback, any pullback in this area is going to give us better risk to reward to the downside. Preferably, as always, if we can come back and retest broken support, turning resistance to the 1.0009, this would be the preferable place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at 0.9821. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2, the 0.9716. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar CAD. Now US dollar CAD was one that worked really nicely recently. We've been grinding to the upside in US dollar CAD. Those of you who have been looking at the forecast over the last few months will know that there's been a bit of a grind to the upside in the US dollar CAD, but we were sticking with it, grinding to the upside, pushing to the upside until we finally reached our longer term target of the 1.35640. And we pointed out this was the key area of resistance to look at. And you can see we actually turned almost to the pip. This was actually on this chart. 1.35650 was the high, and we reversed very, very strongly to the downside. Last week we were looking further declines and we took out the target set at the 1.3401, and very simply put, we're just looking further declines going into next week as well. We need to see a correction come in because this is a very steep move to the downside. Any correction in towards the 1.34320, which is a previous area of broken support, potentially looking to turn resistance. Any pullback in this area is going to provide us with a fantastic opportunity to once again start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bearish formations and patterns in the US dollar CAD, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set, the 1.3216. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1.3113. And last but not least, we have gold. Now, last week we were looking further advances to the upside, and we took out both targets to the upside at the 1311.27 and the 1320.70. Very simply put, we're still looking further advances to the upside in gold. We are now approaching towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1357.50. So what we would like to see is, we'd like to see a correction coming first to give us those better risk to reward setups. If we can get a pullback, and as always, preferably if we can come all the way back and retest broken resistance, turning support at the 1306.00, this would be the best place in terms of risk reward to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish formations and patterns in gold, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1357.50. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to everyone who does that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all, as always, a fantastic weekend, and I hope you all have a profitable week next week. The only thing left to say is take care and don't forget to trade safely.